Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Michael Sharp is I think it's called a demographer that is taking care or working on this project with us. He was unavailable today. However, when you think about what we're trying to do here, we really have to pay attention. We are right now going to be studying calculus for the next 2 hours at least. So we really, because here's what I really want to make sure the board understands. No matter somewhere we'll make the decision will be made, and I will bet the very best hamburger in Las Cruces or El Paso or anywhere that after that's done, somebody will complain. And so as a board, as a governing board, I want to put you in a situation where you can justify your decisions. If we didn't do our homework, you won't be able to do it. And so what I thought about doing today was listening to the presentation that was done for us with all of the maps in front of you. I would encourage you, and I left each of you some notebooks and pens and highlighters and sticky notes. Let's formulate really good questions. And then my hope is to have the demographer here at the August 8th meeting. And the hope is to, again, have this as an item on the agenda to include the conversation. What I'm starting to think about is as we start getting closer to possibly making a decision, I would recommend that we have community meetings in each district that we are looking so we can inform them of the change. So we really, there's 4 or 5 different options. I think today would be successful if we can get a good list of questions and if we can possibly look at either some of the options the board likes or even some of the options the board says, no, we're not doing that. We got to start whittling this down over time. And then because I don't know, and I definitely open to feedback here. In my mind, I'd like us to be close to either 1 or 2 options. So when we do those community meetings, we can present these, maybe gather some feedback, and that can inform you as you make a decision on how you want to vote. If we try to present 4 or 5 to the entire community, you might as a board member be torn to say, well, it's almost like too many. I don't know which one to choose. The community, it's split. So I don't want to put the board in that situation, but I really want you to understand that I think we had better really pay attention to this. As any election anymore, there's always seems to be accusations around all of them, and I don't think this will be any different. And so I want you to just really be open with any questions you have and be thoughtful so that you feel very comfortable. And remember, it is possible to take a couple of the options and combine them a little bit, okay? But, as you hear in the presentation, as I review it, and I reviewed it all yesterday, it hit me really hard that no matter what we do, every district will change, every single one. Chaparral has to be reduced by almost 4,000. And our goal here is to balance voting bases. That's their job. That's the purpose of this. That's a pretty big chunk, right? The ST and Sunland Park area needs a little bit of an adjustment, but the Chaparral area has to be adjusted. And so just kind of as you think through that, what that might look like and which of the options you think are best, there's a couple that, well, we want to get through those, and I had a thought and I kind of lost it. What I'm also going to do this week is I'm going to try to get over to the county clerk's office, and I think it's a good time to sort of review like a couple previous elections and those results, so you get a feel for the amount of voter turnout, right? And I would hope we all want to increase voter turnout. We want to, we want more and more of our families to get out and vote and exercise that right. It's going to help us in our GO bonds. It's going to help us in our SB9 bonds. Those are very important to the district. Any questions as we get started? Okay, Mr. Carmona, can you cue us up on our presentation? And then if we get to a point, the presentation's recorded, so we can just hit pause and say, I don't understand that. Reverse, write a question. What does that mean? Any questions you have, and then we encourage you, please try to use the mic so that, you know, as we're working through this, anybody that's online has an opportunity to hear it. Okay.
All right, Mr. Sharp, go ahead and give it a shot. I think our audio's back up.
Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, good evening. My name is Michael Sharp. Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board, and anyone in the audience. I'm Michael Sharp with Research and Polling out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we've been tasked with redrawing your board member election districts. And so what I'd like to do is a couple things. Go through a presentation that kind of discusses the redistricting guidelines and just some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we go through this process. And then after that, I'll go through each of the 5 concepts in some detail, but hopefully try to not get into the weeds too much on my end, to try to keep it relatively brief. But as we go along, if you have questions, then please feel free to let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get to the presentation part. Let's see. Let's wait till the share screen is enabled. I can kind of go through the first part. So with respect to redistricting, just a little bit of our experience. I've been doing this since 91, 92, so this is my 4th cycle of redistricting. And the company as a whole, we've done a number of projects with throughout the state, including Sunland Park, the City of Sunland Park, Doñana County Commission, City of Las Cruces, City Council. We've also helped out in the past the Las Cruces Public Schools School Board. So hopefully as we go through this, I'll be able to answer whatever questions you may have. First of all, what is redistricting? As Superintendent Dempsey mentioned, this process of redistricting is looking at just the districts from which the board members are elected and not the attendance zones that determine where the children go to school, where students go to school. And when we say redistricting, we need to redraw or draw the lines to determine which voters are represented by each district. So when you go to the polls, you'll see based on where you live, a set of candidates on the ballot, and then you choose one of those candidates. And also determines where you as board members are able to receive those votes from, where you run for election. So why do we redistrict? Well, probably most importantly, it's stated in the state statutes. And it says that any district that has a population greater than 16,000 must redistrict. And so with Gadsden Independent Schools, you have a population greater than 66,000. So it easily exceeds that population requirement. And then the statutes also require that you look at this redistricting issue once every 10 years. And we say once every 10 years because the census is conducted every 10 years, and the census gives us the latest and greatest population data. And so we do it once every 10 years. We wouldn't really want to do it more than once every 10 years. It can get a little crazy. And when population changes, population becomes unequal over time. So 10 years ago, the districts were redrawn so that at the time they were relatively equal in population. Population changes over time. And so over these past 10 years, we've had kind of an unequal distribution throughout the school district, and so we'll need to redistrict. I mentioned the census data already. So what's the process? This is the first of a number of meetings held for the public, for the board to comment, the public to comment if there are any comments from the public. We'll go over the redistricting guidelines, We'll evaluate the current districts. We'll create some plans or concepts. We'll get input about the concepts. And then if we need to, we can revise plans. And then eventually you will adopt a plan as a board, and those boundaries will then go to the county clerk, and they will reassign voters as needed. So if any voters change districts, from 2 to 1 or from 5 to 4 or so on, then the county clerk's office will reassign those folks to the correct district, such that during the next election in November of 2025, the new lines will be in place, and so the folks will be electing the board members based on the new districts. In terms of the number of board meetings, this is I'd say one of 3, maybe a minimum. It really depends on the board. The common question is, well, how many meetings does this take? I like to say, well, the first meeting is informational, kind of introduce the concepts, introduce the guidelines themselves, and then from there you'll kind of get an idea of what concepts you like or don't like. And if for whatever reason one of the concepts is absolutely perfect, and you feel like you don't need to wait anymore to adopt a plan, you could adopt one at the second meeting. But typically what happens is you take a couple meetings, maybe the first or second one, to just kind of look at the plans, comment, make sure you like what you see, and then adopt at a third meeting. But sometimes it takes 2 meetings, 3 meetings, usually 3, maybe sometimes 2, and rarely 4. But it just really depends on the board and what the board needs to make a decision. So there are 5 principles of redistricting. We need to meet these 5 principles in order to stay, I guess, within compliance of state law, of court decisions, and so on. The first 4, equal population, voting rights, compactness, and contiguity, are ones that have been defined by law or the court system. And then the 5th one, communities of interest, is once you take into account those first 4 and you meet those criteria, then you can kind of use that communities of interest to say, determine what some of your boundaries could look like. But you kind of have to meet those first 4. As long as you meet the first 4, you should be okay. So who gets counted when looking at redistricting? Who gets counted as part of the population? When the census is conducted, and its mission is to count every single person living within the United States, as well as military personnel serving overseas. But when we're talking about every single person, it's adults, it's children, it's if you had any colleges within the district, college students in the dorms, anybody who's incarcerated, citizens, non-citizens, documented, undocumented, and so on. So it's everybody. And they're counted at the place where they live and sleep most of the time. And so when you see these numbers, theoretically, it's everybody who turned in the census form. It's a constitutional mandate to redistrict. We want to make sure that wherever you live throughout the district, you have equal representation. So equal population equals representation. You have the same share of your particular board members as anybody else does, no matter where they live. For congressional districts, that equal population threshold is really tight. You have to make those districts as equal as practicable. When we redistricted the state of New Mexico a number of years ago, I think the districts were within maybe 1 or 2 people of each other. So pretty exact, very, very close to being equal population to each other. For school boards, we say, well, the population doesn't have to be exactly the same for every single district. They can deviate from what's called the ideal population. We'll get to that in the next slide. So you can deviate from an ideal population by a total number of 10% total deviation, or plus minus 5% from the ideal. And I'll define that on the next slide. So you have a little bit more leeway with school boards. So when we look at the ideal population, how do you define this? Well, you take your total population, which was 66,426 according to the United States Census Bureau, and which was, by the way, about a 6% increase from 10 years ago. So you take that 66,426 divided by the number of districts, or 5, and theoretically, every district, if you hit the ideal population, would be about 13,285 people. When we say substantially equal, we can go above or below that 13,285 by 5%. And as long as we're within that range, That's about 650 people above or below, roughly. And so as long as we're in that range, then the districts are considered equal in population or substantially equal. And again, this is based on total population and not registered voters. The board members represent everybody throughout the district. Well, let's take a quick look at where the current districts are. Do any of them, the first question we ask is, well, do any of them fall within that plus or minus 5%? And you can easily see with the table on the bottom that every single district is either too big or too small. So districts 1, 3, and 4 are all at least 10% too small. They all have to grow to get, and that percent deviation on the far right-hand side, that's the percent deviation from the ideal population. So districts 1, 3, and 4 all have to grow and get an add population. And district 5, Chaparral, needs to lose a lot of people to get down to closer to that 13,285 number. And you can see in that deviation column how many people above the ideal District 5 is. So it definitely needs to lose, over 4,000 people, and that's a lot. Districts 1 and 3 and 4 need to gain, 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 people. And District 2 is slightly over, so it just needs to lose a little bit. And that's when you look at these in isolation. You can also kind of look in your mind and say, well, where are the districts? And, what sort of potential changes could happen to these districts? And you can see that District 1 is on the low end. The only way that District 1 can add population is go north and go into District 2. The District 5 has a lot of people, has to lose a lot of people. And so we have a couple options that address how District 5 sheds that population. And so we'll go over that in a little bit after the PowerPoint. But just to get ideas, just to show you, well, here are the numbers, everything's above plus or minus 5% outside of that acceptable range, and so you must redistrict. Second thing is we need to look at minority voting strength. We make sure that we do not dilute the voting strength of ethnic or language minority groups. In the case of Gadsden Independent Schools, the group that is large enough to create majorities in the districts, in any of the districts, is the Hispanic population. And really every single district is, I think, at least 75, 80% Hispanic. So we really don't need to really worry about meeting this because every single district provides that opportunity. When we look at compactness, the really important thing to remember about compactness is that it measures a district's shape and not its geographic size. You can have a really large district and area that is compact in shape. Superintendent Dempsey, mentioned briefly in his introductory comments about larger, more densely populated areas. They really don't have to be very big because you don't have to go very far to get districts that meet this criteria that can get to that ideal population. Districts 4 and 5 all have fairly compact populations, and so they don't have to go very far to reach the thresholds that they need to meet. So the two figures on the right, the kind of tannish one and the salmon one, those are roughly equivalent in shape, but they also, and so I think of them as equivalent in compactness, but on the next slide, you'll notice that those same two districts are vastly different in geographic size, with one of them, the tan one, going from Clayton all the way down to Clovis, 100 miles. And then the little salmon one, which is in Albuquerque, and you can barely see it on the left side of the map, that's roughly I-40 in the Rio Grande. And so, but they both have the same population. So that's what the difference is. They both meet that compactness criteria. They just have to go different distances to get the people they need to make them equal. So just examples of compactness. I kept 1991 just to be apples to apples. But in terms of congressional districts, and this was New Mexico's and 3rd District in 1991. And then the ones on the right were Houston and North Carolina. And those on the right were declared unconstitutional because they basically ignored compactness and were drawn for other reasons and completely ignored it and were declared unconstitutional. So we will avoid districts that look like the ones on the right. One thing to keep in mind is the bottom bullet, that the compactness can be affected by the jurisdiction's irregular outer boundary. You don't have to worry too much about that with Gadsden, but just know that, the part that's close to El Paso, Sunland Park is a narrow point, and maybe that affects the looks of a district. So I kind of like to look at the inner boundaries within the district. So then we have contiguity. We want to make sure that every district is one piece. It's not two or more pieces. And I gave you two quick examples. The one on the left are your current districts. I like to say, well, can you put your pencil in a district and get to every other part of that district without lifting up the pencil? Pretty straightforward. In the figure on the left, those are all contiguous. And I just made up some districts just to for illustrative purposes, just to show you the District 2 in that salmon color and District 5 in the kind of, I guess, lavender color. Those are two completely separate islands for each district, and those would both be not non-contiguous, as just an example. So finally, once you meet those first four criteria, well, you meet they're equal in population, take care of the voting rights, they're relatively compact, they're all contiguous. Well, then you can say, well, what are the other things we'd like to consider when creating districts? Do we want to respect political subdivisions and neighborhoods and geographic boundaries? For example, precinct lines. If you can follow precinct lines as much as possible, that helps with the election process. Do you want to keep neighborhoods together if you can? Geographic boundaries, maybe you want to follow the Rio Grande, or highways or major roads, historical or cultural traditions, communities that you might want to either keep in one district or try to keep communities together. Multiple communities together in the same district is fine. You can look at the existing districts. Do you want to try to keep them as similar as possible to today's districts? You can look at that. Another common question is, well, what about the current board members? Can we create plans where there is only one board member per district? We don't pair anybody, and we certainly can't. Nothing says that you have to ignore where the current board members live. And you can look at anything else. It can be school locations. How many schools are there per district? Do schools move from one district to another? All sorts of things can be looked at. And we can consider them as long as all the previous redistricting principles are met. So I think that's an important point to make. So we can look at the redistricting concepts. They're rarely perfect. There will always be something about any given concept that that maybe isn't perfect, that you don't like. And that's just because we have so many different factors to work together, and sometimes those factors work against each other. So you have fine concepts. None of them are necessarily set in stone. If there's a change that you'd like to see, or just want to, can we do this? Can we do that? Then we'll certainly take a look at if those changes can be made. If they meet the criteria, then we'll go ahead and show it if we need to. So that's the presentation on the concepts. And before we move to the, on the principles, before we move to the concepts, I just want to know if there are any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments, concerns for the gentleman? I don't believe we have any, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the concepts. And what I'll do here is
I just want clarification of our understanding of contiguity. Is that good or bad? Because he's defined it as like islands of no island territories. Is that good or bad? I didn't understand.
I think what he's trying to say in that is that, like, if you had a map and you had this large, this area that, like with a pin, you could draw to each boundary and you're fine. And then you jumped over another district and made that the same one. Like, let's just say Sunland Park, and we said, well, we need to gain some population there. Let's add a district for them at Chaparral. That's an island.
I got distracted, sorry.
Just to say, like Sunland Park, and we said we're going to add population, but we don't want to take it from District 2 ST. We're going to take it from Chaparral. That would create an island over there that doesn't make sense. Why? I guess there would have to be some real rationale behind why would you do that, because that seems strange.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Thank you.
describe them and try to give you a rationale behind each one. So let's go ahead and go to just these. So hopefully you see a map in front of you. And these are your current districts. And I wanted to give you just a quick kind of rundown of these numbers because I think it helps. District 5 in Chaparral, that's the largest district and the one that is furthest away from the ideal at 36% over the ideal. And then you look at districts 3 and 4, and they are both over 10% below the ideal. So the thing that pops into my mind is, well, we need to use 3 or 4 or a combination to go into Chaparral and take population. So there's no way around this concept of taking an Anthony-based district and going into and taking population from Chaparral. So you have people from Chaparral and Anthony in the same district. Or I think one of the plans I have, concepts I have, takes District 3 and goes into Chaparral to take that population and add it to 3. So 3 and 4 are both low. Chaparral is high, and so we need to 3 or 4 need to move east to the east. So you can, I guess it's a kind of a big picture decision. Do you create a district which combines Anthony plus some of Chaparral, or do you create a district that combines Mesquite and Vado and La Mesa and San Miguel with Chaparral? So that's kind of a big picture decision the board needs to consider. And then you look at District 1, Sunland Park, it's low, and District 2 is on the high end. So it really makes sense. You really have no choice. District 1 has to go north, and there's no way about it. Just it has to go north to pick up the population it needs. It goes into District 2, and in every single plan that also requires the District 2, we take so much out of 2 that 2 also has to move north or east a little bit to add population to it. So it's kind of this domino effect. You might think you make one change and that's it, but in this case, every single district is going to change. So there's some big picture things. So with Sunland Park, we have to kind of decide how far north do we go. Chaparral, we have to decide what part goes into another district and which district it goes into. And with respect to kind of the Anthony, Chamberino kind of area, kind of have to decide, well, how does District 2 add some of that population it needs? Does it cross the river, or does it go north on the west side of the Rio Grande? So this one, when we talk about precinct splits, that can be important, but I'll just go ahead and mention them as we go through. I think the current district splits 7 precincts, and I'll try to mention that as we go along for the other concepts. So let me look at concept A. And it should pop up. There we go. Great. So concept A, the basic thinking here was, well, District 3 already goes down the east side of I-10. And then I can also throw on your current district so you can have a point of reference. Let's see if they'll pop up. There we go. So the lines in white and green are your current districts. And so you can see that District 3 does go down to the county line east of I-10. So I thought, well, maybe the first place to start, one idea is what happens if you just leave District 3 where it is and extend it east into Chaparral. And the little blue markers on the map are your school locations, and the red markers are the current board member locations. And again, the white and green is the current districts. And so with respect to District 3 and District 5, I can zoom in just so you can kind of see what happens and where those boundaries are. And so here's a Chaparral on the Doña. So all the changes happen on the Doña Ana County side. And District 3, it moves into Chaparral. I'll kind of zoom in again so you can kind of see, but I want to give you some points of reference. And kind of here's kind of 3 goes to Wicker, and then Byram and Lisa, and McCombs down to El Paso to the county line and then down. So that's kind of that boundary between 3 and 5. So 3 had to go that far into Chaparral to take out, over 4,000 people, to get District 5 down to the population that it needs to be. So that's the change between 3 and 5. So 3 was too small, 5 was too big. 3 took all that population for 5, but since 3 took so much, 3 is now too big. So, 3 is now too big. So how do we reduce the population of 3? Well, 4 was too small to begin with. So District 4 moves north into Barreno. And it basically takes almost the entire community. And it goes up to, I'll get the little street here so you can see it. I think that's Calle El Rumbo. And that's the northern part of 4. So District 4 does move north a little bit and takes almost all of Barreno. So that helped with removing population from 3, but not quite enough. So the other district we used was District 2. So you notice the current lines in the white and green. District 3 does go down into Chamberino. And even though we removed Barreno from District 3, it's still too big, District 3 is. So we decided, well, let's just take District 2 and move up and remove Chamberino from District 3. And so now District 3 is fine. It's at -3 below the ideal population. It's within that plus or minus 5%. So you see the district number and the deviation below it. So we've taken care of districts 3, 4, and 5. And District 2 is used to help that. And District 1, if you recall, was too small. It has to get bigger right now because District 2 took Chamberino and now has enough population to give up to District 1. So District 1 moves north on the west side of McNutt. So it adds a lot of population to get within that plus or minus 5%. So it goes up on the east side, excuse me, if I said west, I misstated. I'm up the east side of McNutt, up to, show you the boundary here, Naranjo, and then over to Crawford, and then over to the state line. So that's the northern boundary of 1. 1 had to go that far up the east side of McNutt to get the population that it needed. And so one thing that sometimes can be important are the locations of the schools and how are the schools impacted by the redistricting. It can be important to the board members to know, well, what schools are in your districts. And so within but that change between districts 1 and 2, the administrative center, pre-K, and Santa Teresa Middle School do move from District 2 to District 1. And then in the Barreno area, I'll kind of zoom into that. And you can see the little blue dots. And again, the white and green is your current districts. And right now, the folks north of that green line are in District 3, but they had to move into District 4. So Desert Pride Academy, Alta Vista Early College, and Barreno Elementary do move into District 4 from District 3 in this point. And there are 4 split precincts. Okay, so let's move on to Concept B. And Concept B, and really all the ones that follow it, I wanted to at least start with a different district going over.
Okay, so on that, there's a concept A, and it's on the map called Anthony/Berino. La Union would be in the bottom half of that. I can ask him to designate where La Union Elementary is, I think that's important, and that allows us then to make sure, you know, what changes there. And then you might have areas as you view these maps that you need drilled down to. Make a note of it, write it down. I'd like to see a map expanded of District 2. Keep in mind something, and I should have said this at the very beginning. I think I told a couple of you. This is the reason why I really think this is a very important process for multiple reasons. One in particular, if any citizen of any stakeholder in our community goes to the county clerk's office today and says, I would like a map of the Gadsden ISD voter district, they will refer you to me. I know because I did it. They didn't know who I was. I walked in and asked for it. They pulled it up on the computer and they said, contact Travis Dempsey. I said, well, that's not going to work because I don't have the maps you're talking about. So this is really important because we need to be able to produce these for our communities, and it doesn't exist right now. So we want to, if you have questions, let's be able to drill down as much as you feel like we need to, so that everybody understands where their district starts and ends.
So I'm seeing on concept Anthony Verino. So number 2, I do see the Highway 28. But then if you compare it to Mesquite Vado, you still see Highway 28. That's why I wanted to see La Union Elementary somewhere. Just because when you overlap those two, it's a little bit confusing. And I'm not sure, but it's Highway 28 and Mercantil. But I don't know what the name of the other street that Alvarez. Yeah, and that's not even here. The name of the street, well, I can't find the name of the street. So I was trying to guide me through Highway 28 and I couldn't see any of those streets.
What I have written down is expanded map of District 2, under Concept A, expanded map of District 2 to include La Union. Okay? Other questions around Concept A? Ms. Rodriguez, did you want to share your idea or concern?
Thank you. So one of my concerns here is that it almost seems that we have that island because it would take away Berino and Chamberino, but then it takes me all the way across the mountain. So in a sense, it seems like taking away those areas from the north side would create very exactly that division between the original north side going into now would be the east side, right?
Any other questions or ideas, concerns with Concept A? For District 1, moving into District 2, did that shock you at all? Is there any concern there on Concept A?
He did say that we still have to move north.
Yeah, there's no way to go. There's no other way to go. Right.
So, I mean, to be honest, just for the board's information, I think with any, I'll be good.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the thing is that at least with me, I mean, we can move to Texas. So,
So if we, yeah, I still keep my core base, and it's up to you guys, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Carmona, if you get us to next, we hit play. Thank you, sir.
To Chaparral. So instead of using District 3, we use District 4. If one wants to make the argument that, well, geez, you have a highway and it literally goes from Anthony to Chaparral and, just goes through geography to get to the two communities. Well, maybe it makes sense to combine part of Chaparral with Anthony. Maybe there's more commonality there than there is between San Miguel and La Mesa and Mesquite with Chaparral. So in this case, District 4 does move over to Chaparral and takes that population that has to be removed from District 5. And so that's what we did here. So District 4 does move east over to Chaparral. And I'll zoom in here again to the boundaries. And zoom in here again so you can see the roads. There pop up. Again, it's Wickers before, Byram, Lisa, and then over to Chaparral Drive and down Chaparral Drive over to El Paso. And then El Paso Drive over to the county line and then straight down. So really, really similar to the previous plan we saw, but instead of going down McCombs between Lisa and El Paso, it goes down Chaparral. And so it's one narrow block to the west of what we saw before. And also it follows the precinct line in this particular plan. So not much too different in where the line is. It's a matter of what district goes up to that line. Okay, so now District 4 is really, it's on the high end. It has too many people, just like we saw last time with District 3. Well, now it's District 4's turn to to be too big because it took all of those people from Chaparral. And so what do? I'll turn on the current districts and just so you can see. There we go. And let's kind of zoom in here. Let's see, I'm going to close this so it gets out of the way. All right. District 4 added a whole bunch of people. So District 3 is going to take up that slack, take up all of that excess population that District 4 has. And so District 3 currently has most of Barreno and goes down to and includes the three schools, and it goes further south, and it goes further south to Joy, where Joy meets up with Highway 478, and then it goes down between 478 and the river. So all that area north of Joy goes into 3. And then area south of Joy between the river and 478 also goes into 3. So I can also zoom in. Here's Joy, that kind of right in the middle of your screen. And then I'll kind of zoom into this area so you can see it a little better. This is Anthony Drive. So District 3 goes down Anthony Drive to Joy and Joy over to, really it's the railroad tracks, but the railroad tracks in 478, they are parallel. So a lot of people move from, basically the western half of District 4 moves from 4 to District 3. Because District 3 took so much, it's now, it actually has a lot more people than it needs. And how do we fix that? Well, again, we take District 2 and we move District 2 north along the west side of the river and takes Chamberino into District 2 to help with District 3. So the same situation as before, District 1's too small. We can go into District 2, same northern boundary at Naranjo. But I decided, well, there's a neighborhood at the end of Memorial Pines Road. And what would happen if we just tried to incorporate more of, kind of that Sunland Park proper population within the incorporated area into the Sunland Park based district, District 1. And so District 1 does extend west to take in that neighborhood. If we're thinking about incorporated areas, and this particular change really honestly it can be incorporated into this plan, or if you really don't like how it looks and you just rather have it go up McNutt, then that whole area west of McNutt and north of Memorial Pines and that neighborhood can go into 2 instead of 1. So it's kind of like either or, it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really affect it affects the population, but not enough to exceed our deviations.
Mr. Sharp, if I may interrupt you.
Yes, please.
Maps that you're currently showing us, that is exclusive
Any thoughts on concept B? Any questions that we need to get clarity on? I think the one thing to understand with this one is concept B moves District 4, which is primarily around the city of Anthony, over to Chaparral. And then Berino has been an interesting line currently, and this might clean that up a little bit, so it's very clear that Berino is a part of District 3. Because right now it's a little strange the way the current line's drawn, right? Okay. And then a little bit of change from District 1 to 2. Now this for District 2, and Ms. Bordio's not here, but oh yes, she's. I wonder what your thoughts are on including Chamberino, because that's a new area for you. And I don't know if there's a concern or a thought around it.
I mean, change is hard. So I think what I'm looking at all the folders, and everywhere I'm getting something new, and it's gonna be like brand new people and new relationships, new schools.
That's something to think about as we're going through this is, and he mentioned it. Think about where families live and think about the schools they attend. And like, this is an example of, I guess the way I would, interpret it is you now have a very different voter base.
Yeah.
And if you have Chamberino, which doesn't have a school in it, they probably attend a school that would be in number 3's district, right? So you just got to think about that a little bit and process it. You know, any other thoughts or questions about B? Okay, Mr. Carmona.
To you, we don't have those, correct? Because you're able to manipulate. So the slides that you provided to us, we don't have those, correct?
I'm sure it's just I think I provided some PDFs.
Can you? Oh, go ahead. You want to tell them what you're noticing, Ms. Rodriguez? It's just that we were trying to follow along with what you're presenting with the slides that were provided to us.
Okay.
And I'm thinking maybe because you have that software you're able to like zoom in, so maybe that's why.
Okay. Yeah, it's just easier for me to kind of zoom in and out. Because I can also kind of go into really zoom in and hopefully answer questions if you have any that come along. But at least I try to keep the colors the same, but they're the same boundaries. They're just kind of a different, I guess, display of them. I just want to make sure that you can see what's on the screen and it is making sense. And if it's not, please ask and I'll clarify.
No, it's making sense. It's just that didn't match. But no, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's concept B. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So the schools that moved are the Administrative Center Pre-K and Santa Teresa Middle School. Also, they like previously, they go from District 2 to District 1, and they do that in every plane. And then the other change is that Gadsden Middle School moves from District 2 to District 3. So I'll kind of zoom in. District 2 did go, I believe, over the river a little bit, just barely. And 2 has currently Gadsden Middle School, and District 3 now has Gadsden Middle School. So in terms of school impacts, that's how schools change between districts. There are only 2 split precincts in this particular plan, whereas there were 7 in your current orientation of your districts. Okay, so that's concept B. So I'll move on to concept C. So concept C is just a different take on Chaparral. We've seen already that we took population from the south western part of the community. And this was to give you an idea of what happens if you take population from the northwest part of the community. And it is a pretty significant difference with respect to the schools. So be straightforward with that. And in this case, District 4, it does still go into Chaparral, but it stays north of County Road, A74 and Hermosa, and up Chaparral and up to Luna Azul over to County Line Road. So everything north of that boundary is going to be in District 4. In the past plans, the northern side in this area on the Doñana County side was in District 5. So it does mean that all the schools in Chaparral, in the Doñana side, Chaparral Middle School, Elementary School, Desert Trail, the high school, Chaparral Pre-K, and Sunrise Elementary, all are now in District 4. So if keeping the Chaparral schools in a Chaparral-based district, i.e.
Gizmo,
District
would
5
you
is
pause that?
important, then
Pause
this
that for me.
plan probably doesn't.
The reason I wanted to pause, Ms. Fletcher, I wanted to make sure we were all processing this plan, which is concept C. All schools except Yucca Heights would move to District 4. All schools in Chaparral would move to District 4, just because they're clustered. Think about how our facilities are clustered. So I just want to point that out. So, okay, go ahead.
Work
Yeah,
very
you-
well.
Well, yeah. I don't know if it's a question or comment, but I guess, so when districts are building schools, the idea of redistricting, I mean, that doesn't even come into play, right? When they're building schools to see, so that's like totally irrelevant. So I guess what I'm learning is I don't think it's while some might disagree with me, you know, my community might say, no, we want everybody, like the concept A, I think. But to me, it's like, what's important is that we represent people, not a building. Now, the building is where they get to go to. And so whether, like, even if we were to go with this concept, it's not about the building. I mean, whoever the future representative of District 4, it's about working together. And so it's gonna, I guess, it's gonna take some people some time to understand that it's about the people, not so much the building, territories, I don't know. That's what I'm realizing.
I think that's it. Right. So the demographics will be on the last page. I think, though, great example of if the board went this direction, those are the kind of conversations you'll have to have. Is the goal of redistricting has really almost nothing to do with the facilities. It has to do with the voter base. So I still represent you, right? And so I think that's a good example of those are the type of explanations you as board members will need to be prepared to explain.
And so I know at the beginning of the presentation, it's awesome that we are going to have in the future as we continue this involving the community so they have the opportunity to voice their concerns, their opinion, and then educate everybody as far as what's happening. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Sharp, on that map
Yes.
that you just finished showing, if you can go back to what you were displaying.
Sure.
I'm just curious. So like Luna Azul Drive, would that be District 5 or District 4?
So Luna Azul Drive, the southern part is in District 5. The northern, everything north of Luna Azul in Doñana County is in District 4.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's see, the other thing I thought with respect to options that you might be interested in is currently District 3 has Chamberino. And what would a plan look like if we, in the previous two plans, both Chamberino went into District 2. So what happens if we say, well, we would really like Chamberino to stay in District 3? Maybe that makes more sense. And so in this case, Chamberino stays in District 3, and District 2 in the previous plans, it went up the west side of the river. Instead, it crosses the river and goes all the way over to, the railroad and Highway 478. So south of Joy.
Mr. Sharp, may I ask a
yeah.
question just to make
Yes.
sure? Okay, so it's, I should be thinking what's more relevant is the students that represent, not the buildings, correct? Because in that other one that I asked you, yeah, most of the buildings are, because I live on Luna Sul Drive, so like
Okay.
most of the buildings are, our school buildings are north of where I live. So it's more of the idea of thinking of the students that we represent and how you're cutting the districts, correct?
Well, that's one perspective, and that's kind of what falls within is communities of interest. There's a big debate about who do you represent? Do you represent, and it's on in different levels. And so obviously you represent the people in general, the population as a whole, who elect you, the adults, who are registered to vote, who elect you. But you can also take a look at, well, who are the students that I represent? What are the schools that I currently represent? Because I think a lot of times people say, well, my student attends, say, Chaparral Middle School, and my board member lives in Chaparral. Well, for this plan, how come when I want to talk to my board member, I have to talk to a board member who's in Anthony instead? Whereas, and that in terms of the school locations, now the attendance boundary is a little bit different. That's a little bit more challenging to follow, but in terms of following the lines, but it just kind of depends on your perspective and what is your priority. There is some confusion sometimes about where parents, students attend school and in which board members' district those schools are located. So this could cause some confusion on that, and from that perspective, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's see. So I wanted to zoom in. So in the previous plan, District 2 went into Chamberino. In this case, it stays in District 3. In the previous plan, District 3 went down south of Joy between the river and Highway 478 and the railroad tracks. But because 3 took Chamberino, 2 can cross the river instead and take that area south of Joy over to the railroad tracks. So now District 2 goes all the way over to border District 4, and I can throw your current boundaries on there, kind of the white and green lines. So you see that area that used to be, it currently is in District 4, west of the railroad tracks, and south of Joy is now in 2. Gadsden Middle School stays in District 2. So District 2 basically just continues on to the north and the east up to Joy. And between Districts 1 and 2, I kept the neighborhood at the end of Memorial Pines Drive in District 1. So no change there from the previous plan. One thing to note is that District 3 does go down to the northern part of La Union. And there are some folks on the north side of this precinct boundary that are in District 3. So I mentioned the schools. So all the schools on the Doniana side, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 schools go from District 5 to District 4 are now in a board member's district who represents Anthony. There are 3 split precincts as compared to 2 in the previous plan.
So I think I didn't catch that, but Chaparral, the schools would remain. How is that one going to be?
In Concept C, the schools in all the schools except Yucca Heights will remain in District 4. Now, I wondered if there was any reaction to a portion of La Union in Concept C will go into your District 3. No, we're in C. We're in C. Yellow folder. Yellow folder. So District 2 would lose portions of La Union, not all of La Union, but District 3 would pick up.
So in a sense, that would kind of create what currently is happening with Berino. It would be divided, so La Union would be part for, right?
A divided neighborhood, right, between, you know, one side of the street's going to vote for in District 2, the other side of the street's going to vote for District 3.
Again, the split precincts, I think on all these plans, they improve upon what you have now. And you don't have to stick to precinct lines, but it is nice to at least reduce the number of splits that you have today. I think that would be helpful, at least from a voter perspective. And I think the clerk also appreciates it in terms of ease of administering elections. Okay, let's take a look at concept D. Okay. All right, so in concept D, I kind of undid that. I went back to the previous plans where the Chaparral population goes into force. So now all the schools in Chaparral are in a Chaparral-based district, and I want to say, you know, represented by a board member who lives in the district. And so I wanted to kind of revert back to that to give you some options. Then, so combines the adjustment from the previous concept B with a northern adjustment of concept C. So we saw before in the previous plan, I know there's a lot of concepts, but the previous concept C had District 2 going up to Joy and to the railroad tracks. So what I really wanted to do was kind of keep that, but go back into the Chaparral area and go back to concept B and say, all right, let's just keep all the schools kind of together in a single district within the Chaparral area and combine one part from a previous concept with another and combine them into one. So you can kind of see, well, sometimes you can mix and match some of the things you like and create something new. So Chamberino does stay with 3. The difference between this one and the previous one is that the boundary between 2 and 3 moves north a little bit. So all of La Union is in District 2. There were a few of them who were in District 3 in the previous concept. And in fact, this kind of goes back to the boundary between 2 and 3 in the Chamberino area now goes back to what it is today. So you can kind of see between 2 and 3, it does follow the same boundary. So that red and white is your current district. So in terms of things not changing in this particular spot, there wouldn't really be any change. So I think that's important to note. With respect to between districts 1 and 2, the community, the neighborhood at the end of Memorial Pines is back into District 2. So again, that can be put in either District 1 or 2 in all these plans. It doesn't really impact the numbers with respect to exceeding the allowable deviation. So that's kind of the choice of the board. What do you prefer? Again, the only two schools that change districts will be Administrative Center Pre-K and Santa Teresa Middle School. And there's 2 splits.
District 1 would jump all the way across McNutt and come into the corner, and you would get like Airport Road, everything up behind, you know, the new development. District 1 would pick up. And so that's a significant change for District 2. So do we want to, I don't know how everybody feels. That gets us through all, I mean, I think we've got a decent preview of districts, our current, and then multiple proposed. I would ask, is there any ideas or thoughts or any what are your ideas? What are your thoughts? What are people thinking right now? Because what I want to help you, I want you to understand is that, you know, somewhere on some future agenda, and I would say it needs to be before November, there's going to be an action item. You're going to have to vote on it. what information do you need to make a good decision? And is there one of these that you want to have a conversation says this doesn't work? I don't know if anybody wants to help us. Narrowing it down I think helps. So is there any concept that we reviewed today that you say, oh no, this is not going to work? Claudia?
Yes.
I definitely think that, again, concept A, having that separation between the north and adding Chaparral, I don't think that would be a very wise thing to do. And then I believe concept E is similar because it does run into the same thing, creating that island. So again, it would be A and E.
Any additional conversations around that?
I'm not back at A, so I need to check A again, but for sure not E. So I think I don't know how you guys feel about E, and we can. That one, Toby.
E was let's see the color. Green. E is green, and what has been discussed here is that they sort of create some interesting islands, maybe that Ms. Murillo and Ms. Rodriguez have pointed out might not be a good way to go, and they're proposing a possible elimination of which again today you're not here to make decisions, but I want to help you kind of narrow down. So my hope is when you leave today, you have 2 or 3 that you study, because again we're going to have to go through this and really get clear on those lines so that you feel comfortable with them before you have to vote.
Mr. Dempsey.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Rodriguez, can you show me like when you say the island for A? No, but I still want to go to concept A. What do you mean, like an island? Can you show me?
So on page, the one that shows all blue, that would mean if you see I-10, then it goes further down, right? It goes all the way, which currently that's not part of it. And then it goes all the way to county line. So then this other page, Laura, shows where it goes all the way to county line. So it actually creates a step there, if you can see, like a stairway, right? It creates like a little stairway right here.
So what do you mean by I see that, but I don't understand when you say it's an island.
So again, he had talked about how almost like dividing, right? It's not dividing it because it's continuous, but at the same time, it is because it goes across the mountain from the northern part. It comes all the way down and then goes east, which would take us into Chaparral. That's where I feel like it's also creating that island.
So your definition of an island would be like separation of same community into 2 different districts.
No, sorry. It's not necessarily just the communities, but because it's, again, look at the whole picture. You're seeing the northern part, which is District 3, right? Well, I would try to see with the one that has the biggest part, the blue one, that shows the whole district. Let me see. So
Let me go
this
over
one,
there. Yeah, explícame, apúntame.
yes, this one, and then this one. Okay, so we have this is all thank you. This is all the northern part, but then now it takes me down here and takes me to the east. So it comes down and then that way. So, and that's why I'm saying it almost creates like a stairway here, because it's gonna take some portion of Chaparral and some, again, not there, and then it goes back. So that's where I'm saying that it creates that separation from one area to the other. Does that make sense?
Splitting the community.
Well, she had said that that could be.
I see that one very similar to the where you at right now.
Yeah, but I don't take any of the Chaparral area. It takes me further south and then east.
Because you'll be losing Berino in this one, right? In eight, because
I
that's
don't
eight.
know if I'm losing
Yes.
Berino. Let me see.
That goes
Sorry.
to number 4.
Calle Rumbo.
Because here, right now, currently, look, you have Otero Street and you have Calle Rumbo and Rio Lane, and now you won't have it anymore, right?
So I have got, it's going to create the same thing that currently is happening where it divides some of the Berino part.
Again, this is, you see that part of your brain, right? When you're thinking back to when you took calculus and that part of your brain's hurting a little bit. That's
I
what
don't know
maps
to
do.
say. Yeah.
That's what maps do. Remember the first time you had to learn about derivatives, right? And integrals. Mm-hmm.
That's what problem solving is. We don't have an answer, but we will. Perseverance.
Persevere, right? You got to push past it, right?
So Laura, you'll be losing half of it. Are you looking at the?
Yeah.
If you look at the current one to the red one, you'll be losing half of half of the map. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I just say like it doesn't bother me like maybe because I welcome it actually, but let's see what my constituents say. Because I think for the first time, one of you will actually get to see the challenges that Chaparral has, and now we're gonna have another voice for Chaparral. Is my hopes.
I definitely agree on that. And I think that it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing because now, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers and you're above 4,000 in population from everyone else, or your population is like 4,000, and some of us would be gaining because we are obviously under. So that would be a good thing. But I'm just very concerned about that. Where that specifically for District 3, that you'll have to, District 3 goes down and then it goes east. Rather than, I mean, we're still, no matter which one we decide, one of them is going to fall into Chaparral. So the one that I'm seeing here, that makes a little bit more sense to me. I don't know how you all feel about it, but I think D is the one that almost makes the best sense because the numbers, you would lose 4,321. District, the Anthony area would gain 2,032, which means that would be the Chaparral population. And then District 3 gains 1,571. District, year 2, loses 872. And then District 1 gains 1,790.
Because when you see the numbers, that's what makes more sense. Because that's what makes like more representation.
Still talking about concepts A and E, or are we on to something else?
I don't know, how do you guys feel about eliminating E? Just start going down the folders.
Can you explain your reasoning, Ms. Murillo? Like I understand
of
Claudia's,
eliminating
but now for you.
E?
No, why would you like to eliminate A?
No, I didn't say A, I said E.
E. So Claudia's A and
She's
proposing
A and E, and I'm
A
saying E.
E. Okay, ¿por qué?
Why? Because I'm looking at, if you go number 2, you see how Christian goes around me. If you see 1 and 2, and you see Santa Teresa, so Santa Teresa will be divided. Just like Claudia said in the first one. I get Father Moon, Sundance, all those, but then above Father Moon, I'm done. So he goes just like, kind of like around me. He's making me kind of like in a lake. You see here?
So I'm just being devil's advocate. So, you know, and I'm nothing personal, but I'm like, I'm hearing Santa Teresa will be divided, but at the end, Chaparral is going to still be divided. But I guess
Right.
more reasons other than it's going to be divided.
So let me tell you what happened in the city of Sunland Park. We went to the works. I actually went to the workshops, and it's not good. They have Santa Teresa, all around Santa Teresa Elementary, the Villa Valencias, they're HOAs, and then each month is HOA and homeowners association. So we pay a fee, and then I'm also an HOA, but I only have 27 homes. So they created District 6 just with them, and they removed me. So I'm part of, I don't know what Mili is. I still can't remember my district, but I'm part of Mili Sandoval. Two, which I've never voted for her. Like she's not even part of my community because she lives behind Riverside. So that's kind of far. So I lost all the people that voted for me. I lost them all. I don't have any single one of them. So I jumped with them. They did create an island. I jumped from my home all the way to the other side of Santa Teresa.
Elementary. No, Santa Teresa, the
Santa Teresa,
community.
the county, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So where Wells Fargo is, I still go further. So I feel like that will be creating the same thing on Concept E. We will be doing the same exact thing that they did. So we're asking if we should eliminate Concept E, and if you guys agree, that way we can narrow it down to like 2 or 3, and then we can have a conversation when our therapist comes.
Mr. Sharp, what I would say is there's a reality you got to deal with. The 2 communities that are growing are Santa Teresa and Chaparral. They're going to be divided. That's a concept everybody's going to have to get, because in order to balance the populations, you got to move into that. How it looks, and I think as I know it's hard. Well, what I'm going to say is try to put yourself in the common voter's shoes. Sometimes there's a question that says, well, could they just say the people on the east side of one road is divided, and there's right, and so sometimes land boundaries and natural boundaries help, but sometimes that doesn't make it easy, right? And our communities are like pockets, right? And so you just got to be thoughtful. And then I really think there's a conversation a little bit to be had, and I wrote it down as a question. Ms. Rodriguez brought it to me earlier, was do we try to plan for some growth so that because this only happens really every 10 years. So do you try to plan for some growth so you don't get out of balance as much? Because it does feel like we're pretty out of balance right now. Yeah. I don't know.
No, just a question. We did have the redistricting 10 years ago. That had happened, because it just seems it's the numbers are very outrageous, right? And we're looking at, I keep saying Chaparral, it's 4,000 plus. You know, that's a big difference from, over here, District 2, it's about, if you compare between those two, it's about 4,000, the 4,000 that Chaparral has. So it just seems like there was not any, I don't know, progress in making those adjustments. So that's why I think it's important to perhaps look into what areas are growing, or what it seems that, what areas seem to be growing, so that we can take that into account, so it doesn't, the same thing doesn't happen within, between these 10 years and the following.
And I'm going to add to that, Mr. Rodriguez, is that, this is based on the census, but how accurate is that census? How many of our folks living out there really did complete the census?
Having federal programs right here beside me, I can tell you, we worry about how many actually of our families really participated.
Any of the communities.
Right, and it could be true in any of our communities in the southern part. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to attack that in a different way. This is what it is. The numbers are what they are. We can't change the census numbers. They just are what they are, and we have to work to balance them. But it doesn't, I think it's important to note there's families in pockets of all of our communities we have to make sure we're serving, which is where Rosie, that's where her superpower lies. She finds any family or child that needs help, and she's going to take care of them. That's what we try to do.
But it's coming back to Chaparral. That's what, like you say, we question the census. Yes, I do. I think I'm the first one in the district questioning the census. But where are we seeing the highest needs all the time? It's Chaparral. Is this a lot of people that is not counted? And that's why I think we need to be really careful on this, because it's Chaparral. We need more representation. We need to support more that community. All of our communities, but Chaparral is like, you're telling me the needs? I'll tell you where they are.
No, yeah, and I think you were here, Mr. Dempsey, so I wanted to make sure that you hear this. As I had mentioned to my fellow board members, is like, I'm all about, let's give the community an opportunity to voice their concerns, questions, and I'm actually welcoming this, because I did make the statement that I am more than happy to share or work together with another fellow board member, so that we can actually understand the needs and the challenges that Chaparral has had for many years, and sometimes we don't feel like we're being heard. So I welcome it. So I think it's awesome.
I agree.
Sorry, I have a question. How come District 4 remains kind of like small? How come? But how come he doesn't expand to the sites, like getting some 5 and 3, like opening up?
Because of the number of people, so it's more condensed. Like our areas are more separated, like the houses are.
Yeah, you have to kind of move away from it's hard when you look at maps, because you have to move away from the concept of like the land mass size. You're looking at voter population. And so the city of Anthony is going to carry a large population. So District 4 is always going to stay probably smaller in area than the others, just because of that cluster of population.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. So whoever's watching and whoever's going to watch this in the future, so this means that, okay, make sure that I say this correctly and correct me if I'm wrong. So this means that whatever board member ends up, because it's inevitable that we're going to be split in Chaparral, it's inevitable. So whoever in the future represents part of my community, which is going to be our community now, that doesn't mean that, it means that now a Chaparral resident could also declare candidacy and be running against Ms. Rodriguez, be running against, does that make sense?
No, it does. When you
So-
no, it's totally. I really I appreciate that you're kind of visualizing the concept. We've already, in our current situation, we say, well, District 4 is Anthony's representative, but based on these new concepts, it may or may not be Anthony's, right? Because it has Chaparral. It could be somebody from Chaparral. And I want to remind you, and I know it came up in the presentation, but I had requested each of your current physical addresses, and I submitted those so that none of you would be we don't want to draw lines and district you out, right? And so that occurred, that process occurred.
And that happened to Rebecca Dow. She ended up moving her own home she couldn't vote for herself anymore. She's out.
Wow.
That's why she lost. She lost her own little community where she lives.
No, that's yeah.
I just said that it shows that we need to be very cautious and look at every detail. And I think it's, going back to what Laura was saying, it definitely having that support, because it is Chaparral is huge, right? And I think that visually, when we see the maps, it almost seems like it doesn't make sense, right? Because some of them are so huge. And then, like we were talking about District 4, it seems so small. But thinking about the population, it is equitable once you do that. And that's why I keep thinking that, I don't know if we want to look at concept D, because on that one, I feel like it's very, I mean, obviously all of them have to have that 10%, 5%. The deviation needs to be, they looked into this. But that one just seems like it's more equitable in the sense that, okay, it really flows instead of it flowing and then moving to another side.
Concept D is blue folder. Are we concept D? Yes. So let's walk through concept D. Let me look at my notes real quick. Concept D, what you're going to have is a little bit of District 4 moving into Chaparral, a little bit of District 3 moving into Chaparral. I think what's going to change is 2 and 3 significantly. 2 and 3. Yeah. So, yeah, 2 and 3.
No, it doesn't move to Chaparral because it goes all the way to Joyce.
3?
Correct. Yeah, you'll be adding.
I think it does.
Oh, this part.
Yeah, up at the top. Yeah, it's going to be a small area.
Small area.
Yeah. But District 2, in that sense, look what happens to District 2. District 2 would include Gadsden Elementary, right? You would move way north, right? You don't pick up, District 2 would not pick up Chamberino. You would keep that. District 2 would move all the way to that Joy Drive.
So who's the one that, does District 4 take majority of Chaparral?
District 4, yeah, that's interesting. And if you think about that, you think about natural lines, that line runs right at 478, Highway 478. And then it keeps, Anthony Elementary, Loma Linda, but it does jump over and pick up all the way in Chaparral to, what's it called? Is it going to go as far as the schools? It would be just west of Chaparral Middle. So it doesn't pick up the schools. We have that cluster of schools, Chaparral Elementary, Chaparral Middle, Desert Trail. It doesn't pick those up, but it's right there. Real close to that. So there are some factors that, we're going to be unique given our experience, because right now we don't have a representative for District 4. I'll get you guys the policy on it. There's a process that has been used in the past. The policy says that as a board, you have 45 days to name someone. After 45 days, the Secretary of Ed does it for you. In the past, what had happened was the board announce to the community for representatives, and they would submit a letter of interest, and there was a special meeting, pretty much kind of a little interview, and then a selection was made. That's how that was done in the past. And I don't know, my gut tells me we'll still be working on this when that person gets selected by the board. So just kind of keep that thought in mind.
So I'm going to suggest, I don't know how you guys feel about it, to eliminate again E and D. And then just keep the other three and study them.
I think I still need to review more on D.
So then should we just keep 4 then and really like get into it and then just eliminate E? How do you
Are
guys
we
feel about
keeping
that?
A?
I want to keep A.
Okay.
I don't know, you guys, I just said,
Okay.
we should like talk about it now if we,
You want to remove
E,
Ian?
the.
E is green.
Yeah,
E is
sorry,
green
E is
folder.
green.
And
I personally don't want to remove anything right now. I think I need to
Exact. So you wanna-
study it closer. I mean, in the future, I'd probably be willing to.
Right now, but,
Right now, I can't even say what I want to remove myself, but I respect it, like your, so.
Well,
I
we're
just wanna
saying
make
to-
a note,
well-
which are the ones that you want to remove?
we were saying to narrow it down for the next meeting.
Oh.
That's what we were saying, because we have all this.
I think that, I think one of the things we could do, not technically narrow 'em down, but at least talk about the different differences between one of them and the other, you know, like what we see, and then go from there, right? I think, I do agree with you, Laura, in just holding off for a little bit, but at least, because, you know, right now, I was talking about D, but now that you all mentioned some things, it's like, okay, now I really need to see even deeper into it.
Would it be possible then to, no, I agree with you. You know, thank you for the two of you communicating the ones that you would like to remove. But yes, I think I would rather hold off. But what I'm going to ask you is, can you communicate to Mr. Dempsey, if that's okay with you, like your reasons why? Because that way I can like go back and study what y'all said. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, we just did.
Sí, pero. No, I know, pero.
here's my note, and I just, I'm just generally taking notes. Concept A,
Okay.
I have Ms. Rodriguez who said no, and her words were islands or stairs,
Okay.
and it separates those communities. It drives it goes pretty far into Chaparral. For concept E, I have Ms. Morillo who says, no, ST is going to be divided. You're really going to divide a voting base from her perspective. Then my other note that I have for sure is that I'm interested to know, when did we do this last? Because you don't recall this. I haven't been here 10 years.
No. None of us have been here 10 years, and so that was not under your administration or when I was on board or anything. Any of us. The only redistricting that we've done, sir, is the one for the actual school
The
attendance.
attendance zones.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to find out when it was done, just so we all know. Again, it's another important piece to understand how we got to where we're at, so we don't do it again, right? And it may not, we didn't do anything wrong. It could be that just growth occurred, but let's try to be forward thinking and plan for it.
I have a question. So if people approach me, I could definitely have a discussion and just hear them, what their concerns are, and what, so that I want to also, what am I trying to say? Because people are going to talk to us. It's inevitable. So, I'm thinking, if they do, I'm going to hear them out, and hopefully they watch this video, the recording, they can make their pointers or notes, and then, hear from them, just so that I can be ready for when we discuss this again, share, whoever reached out to me. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any input that, as you're studying is what I would ask you as you're studying these, because if I'm you guys, I need to spend some time with these, and I need to process them a little bit, and maybe need to ask somebody that I don't know that certain road and what's that going to do, and maybe go for a ride, right? And get it physically in my brain. Write those questions down. Send them to me. I'll send them to Mr. Sharp. We'll work on these and try to get you every answer we can get you so you can make a great decision. What I would say to as with anything, and maybe I'm just, I don't know, it's Saturday, maybe I'm in a little mood. If people have an opinion, they have to participate. Join us. We're here.
So,
So if anybody's listening online, join us.
yeah, and
We're
so
here.
that, and so it would have been awesome to have them here. Is there any possibility, you get where over there in Chaparral, hey, could we have something like this over there where those community members? So because what to me is like, I don't just want to make a decision just like that. Like I value the input of my community members, and so what I'm thinking is okay. A meeting over there. I'm advocating for my community, Chaparral. Okay, so and so date, come out. This is very important. I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your ideas, so that I'm ready to present. And have an opinion and have, well, obviously I'm going to say have a say, but based on their input. And then same thing like for my other, so that way we can make an informed, educated decision where we're taking into consideration the voice of our communities.
My recommendation is try to get this whittled down to 1 to 2, maybe 3, and then have a community meeting in each district. Schedule a community meeting. Here's what we're looking at. It gives you then an opportunity to invite community members, and they could say, "Oh, I don't like concept 1. However, I fear a little bit. If we take all of these out there, I don't know if we're going to come back with a direction. That's always a problem. I mean, the menu's too big, right? There's too many choices. So if you as a board can start narrowing, and I'm not saying today, it's hard. Start narrowing our options and get us down to, I would hope 2, maybe 3, no more than 3. Then go to the community, have some community meetings. It gives you a chance, what I would almost encourage, and of course I'll always be there to help, and if you want me to lead the conversation, I can. It would be great if you led the conversation to say, here's the 3 options we're looking at, or 2. Here's the strengths and pros and cons of each one. At the end of the day, there's no perfect way to do this. What is the one I can live with? And then you can hear from your community of why they think one works better than others.
I think that taking the time, right? All of us need to look at what the pros and cons are for the districts, for specifically the district that you represent. So like I'm looking at concept B, and one of my biggest concerns would be it takes away Chamberino, but yet all of the student or families that live in Chamberino attend the North Valley School, which will be in District 3, and then it would move the Chamberino to District 2. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do, like really analyze how much it'll affect your community. That way, when we do when we have those community meetings, where we know exactly the pros and cons, and we can inform the community about it.
And I'm not trying to be a pain, Ms. Rodriguez, but I'm like, it's. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Chaparral is inevitable, and I'm in the same boat as you are. Like, whichever one is like, so that's where I'm like, wow.
Well, no, and that's great. I see what you're saying, and I think that we need to get out of that little pocket of just thinking, it's going to change. We know it's going to change. It's just making it what's really feasible and really makes more sense, because yes, it's inevitable for us to we have to make that change.
And I just want to, if I may, I don't mean no disrespect, but it's almost like it always feels Chaparral gets the short end of the stick, but we're going to make this work. And it's just, I think what it is, I guess I'm trying to say is we're all going to be affected, and, we'll do what we need to do. But in the end, it doesn't matter. When you say, both of you are saying, most of Chamberino goes to North Valley. It's the same thing with Chaparral. In any of these, it's just, it is what it is.
But I don't see it like that, because I see it, in fact, you now getting double representation, because you'll have now 2 representatives in Chaparral, which is great. I think you're, I mean, yes, you have always been like at the end, but now you're not anymore because now you're going to have your community that you're going to represent, and then whoever gets the other person is going to have the community where they attend. So now there's two.
And I think that that's one of the things that we're responsible for, right? I know when I first ran, I went and got the A list, and I was like, wait a minute, this makes no sense. And the county provided that, and so to me, it just immediately didn't make sense from the get-go, right? Because of the way it was aligned and the districting, it just didn't make sense at all. So I think that that's another thing, right? We need to be proactive in making sure that, hey, my community is already expanding and it's looking, so what do we need to do? And this is why we're here, because we know, and especially now really looking at the numbers, it's like it's outrageous, right? And so I think that really not Chaparral was underrepresented or anything. That's not the case. It's just that the population is so big that that's why we need to make sure that there's that support, right, and that additional representation.
Thank you for your feedback. Huh? No, I said it. I said it, ladies. I'm gaining. It's just hard. It's hard, but I know it's gonna work out in the end. So I'm not worried. And I value so it's okay if I say, whoever's watching, you may contact me and give me ideas before we meet for the next.
Absolutely. Input, I think, helps. If I'm in you guys' shoes, input helps me make good decisions, and I need to hear from my community, and we want to arrange opportunities to do that. I will promise you, we will take an action, you will get this in place, and you will get a complaint.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
you have to prepare yourself for that reality that I didn't know any of this was going on. You have to tune in or tune out, and don't, vote or don't vote, right? And if you don't vote, please don't come and complain, right?
So with that being said, sir, could because I know that on our social media platform, or at least Facebook, we had posted this. Could we, like, in layman's terms, like, express to our community, can communicate to them why this is so important? Like, that's very plain and simple.
Sure.
Because I think also, I don't think that, just posting it out there, they're going to really understand. So at least I'm going to do my part also to try to explain to them why this is so important, why I need your input.
My feedback to the board, and absolutely we can do what you've asked. It will help when the board narrows it down.
Yeah, I totally
Because
agree.
right now, if I present all this, you want to
too much.
confuse our community, this will be the way to do it, right? It's hard. I told you, this is calculus brain. And spend your time in it. Let's get you answers to all your questions so you're comfortable. When we get to whittling it down, then I would love to do a video, and we can blow that out to all social media platforms, all our communities, do some community meetings, gather some feedback, and I think that puts you in the best place. Because like I said, somebody will complain after the fact, and then you can walk through, look at all we did, right? And that's where that stake in the ground helps you. Community meetings, work sessions, we could do some virtual meetings. Virtual meetings are really easy. And we could just set up some virtual meetings so people could jump on from random areas and say, I got questions. And we could do something like that too.
I was going to say, I appreciate that, to give the community not only the opportunity to come in person, and then also do the streaming. And if we are doing this, be able to do virtually, be able to get those comments, because not everybody, unfortunately, can come in person. And that way nobody has the excuse of, I wasn't able to attend because of whatever. You've got different platforms that you can voice your opinion.
Just like we do coffee with the superintendent, coffee with the principal, in person, virtual, not a problem whatsoever.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
start putting that definitely on the first coffee with the superintendent. Completely. On every meeting of the next month, on next coffee superintendent, let's put them there. And then remember, we're doing it. We're gonna be doing the now coffee superintendents at night, 9:30 in the mornings, for parents that wants to go present to be there, and we're still having them online in the afternoons, and that will be a great space to that. But we need to have this, how we're gonna deliver for the parents to understand where we need to all come is like say, let's make it easy for them. This is confusing. It's very hard for the parents. We need to make easy for them to understand the representation. So, but let's include them all the agendas on the next 3 months.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any input, any thoughts, any next steps?
I will say maybe at the next meeting, decide to narrow down to like 2 or 3. That way, because the next meeting is already next week. So when you guys announce it, okay, this is what they came to, and that's it. So we can start like cleaner, right? Yes, that would be great.
Once we start narrowing, that helps us get more concrete information out.
Yeah.
And that will be great. And that way we communicate better and
Our next meeting is August 8th. No, it's, you got 2 weeks, but we're working super hard, and I'm going to hold my team to this. The day the agenda is posted, all material is available to you. So you get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That means you can't give me anything the day of approving the agenda. No way, no how. We're going to push that off to the next meeting. Okay? So we want to get you this information up front, and you have it all so that you can make good decisions. Okay? Okay. In fact, Ms. Flores and I are going to try to sit now and approve the agenda, because beginning of school gets really crazy. Our schedules get real. Everybody gets busy right now. Okay, that's all really I had prepared. I don't know if anybody has questions for me or needs time with me. I'm available for that. We have Mary Lou got chicken salad for everyone, so please have lunch. Please take things home. Do not leave that stuff here, because I don't know what to do with it, and I'm just going to stick it in the fridge somewhere, okay? So, but thank you for your time. I appreciate each one of you.
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Carmona. Thank you, Dr. Mora. Thank you.